I want people to when they sit down and play the game, it won't be the same game they played last time.
So we are here with the creator of Scrumpy. This is Paul Frohnsdorff-Harris.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. So I'm just going to jump right in. I was doing some research on the game on BGG, and I saw something from, I think, like a 2017 expo. So obviously this game has been percolating for a while, and if you can go over the history of it.
Yeah, so I first started designing games around 2015, 2016. And so this was a game idea. This was the second game idea I'd really had. I'd designed the game, and it went into development with another company. So this was my next game I started working on. I had this idea of creating a game where the cards were also the resources. So the first idea I actually had was a mechanic, which is not normally how I design. I often design for theme and then choose mechanics to derive the theme. But in this instance, I had this idea of, well, what if your workers were also your resources? And you've played the game and you know that's kind of still a core tenet of the game.
Sure, I find it more interactive than a lot of games kind of this weight, because I have to pay attention to what's being taken. Like, your speed is definitely an issue, whereas a lot of other games you can just kind of like take your time, work yourself into it. But now if somebody else is speed rushing, I've got to change up what I'm doing, which makes sense really from just an economic standpoint. If the market's moving at a certain speed, you need to keep up.
Yeah, I mean, and we've gone through tried lots of different things with the market and how we were going to do things, and the standard Euro way of designing things is to focus a bit more on that sort of building an engine in your own time. And I kind of want to have the hybrid where it's got a thematic Euro where you've got to respond to other players, you've got to respond to what other people are doing, but equally you can build up nice combos. I mean, it is pleasing to be able to have that turn where you go, right, I'm going to make one more apple to be able to then play my presser, and that presser allows me to make these bottles. I now have 4 bottles. I can now turn over this gold card, and it feels like you've achieved loads in one turn, and everyone's like, where's that all come from? Just that to me is, you've got to be able to have the combos, but I don't want the sort of thing where someone's just sitting there going, I don't really care what everyone else is doing, I'm just going to set up my perfect little combo, run it, thank you very much, I've won the game. It needs to be sort of a bit quicker than that, and I hope you've possibly found that the 2-player game, once you both know it, it can become quite a quick, like we had one today with someone who was playing for the first time, and it was over in 40 minutes, including the explanation, and it was just bang, 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 bang. And I want that sort of, I want people to have the feeling that when they finish, should we play another one? Like,
how this game's replayable is the fact that not every code is going to be available to you all the time, and there is an element of luck because, like you said, they are your resources and your workers. So the code you may want might be hiding out as a bottle of cider.
For sure.
Yeah.
So, like, going into like that replayability aspect of the design, I think the fact that the cards have so many different uses really adds to how you get variety and I guess different games every time.
I want to design games where every time you play, there are some small things that change. Like, this is a medium weight game, and it's got depth to it, it's got strategy to it, and maybe I'm hoping that I will get to design some even deeper games, and maybe not to your Vital Lacerda depth, but to the depth where people go, oh, there's a lot to this game under the surface. But equally, I want people to when they sit down and play the game, it won't be the same game they played last time, because, as you say, they might heavily they might manage to make a card work really well for them. Let's say that the advertiser, they manage to make the advertiser work really well for them. They get a high money game, they get lots of money coming out, and then the next game they play, the 2 vendors that they flip over, there's little money in those vendors at all. They have to spend all their money to get the advertiser rather than getting it free, and suddenly money's really difficult for them. And it's that sort of juxtaposition of not being able to sit down at the game and go, I'm going to do this strategy because it's broken, it always wins. Because right. I want it to have a little bit of, you're going to have to respond to what the game is doing and play the game rather than play your idea of what the best strategy is.
We find that with your goal codes as well. Every game, it's going to change up what you're going after as well. Even though they're not worth a lot of points, every point in this game does add up because the scores aren't extremely high. They're around that, well, depending on how the game goes, we've been scoring between like 25 on a low game to about 45. So, 4 points on some of these bonuses, they add up.
Yeah.
So that's one thing we found. And then also, depending on the vendors you get, it also drastically changes because barrels might not be very useful in some games.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted it to be the case that when you sit down in those first 4 turns, I want you to be able to make cider. Like I have managed to make it now. I've sold cider on the start of turn 2. So like that to me is important. But it's also okay to hold off and not make cider at all in the whole of round 1, but suddenly then be able to really ramp it up, and that to me makes it interesting. I played with a friend of mine the other day, and we had the supermarket come out and another sort of bottle-based one, and he was just trying to do 1 bottle all the time as quickly as he could, and it made this amazing game which only lasted 5 rounds rather than 6, and he was just flying these things, and people who were trying to go for barrels were suddenly like, I'm not going to have time for this because he's gone so fast off the bat. And it makes that sort of juxtaposition of being able to try different things based on what cards you've got coming out and how you can do it. And
so, Paul, when does this game launch on Kickstarter?
Yeah, we launch on the 4th of the 4th.